Right, everybody, we're back for another episode of Bully Pulpit. Today I will be by myself. Chris Matola, my co-host, as you all know if you've seen the show, is a political consultant, and he's dealing with work stuff. So that might be something really exciting. I think in the next episode we're going to have to ask him if he can share some of what it was, maybe change the names to protect the guilty, and we'll figure out what's going on. Might be something we need to know for our lineups as we set them this year. Um, Lots going on in politics. If you if you've already entered some of our contests, you've probably seen some point swings. I hope you're up. You might be down. Lots of things going on. Um, Lots of things as expected so far, but I think that's going to become less the case as we really dig into the season here. My name is Justin Schoenfelder. I am the founder and CEO of Fantasy Elect. We're bringing fantasy sports to the sport of politics. You build your teams, earn points, and win some real money. For as long as money has value, I guess. Okay, we're going to jump right in today. Lots going on, like I said. Before I even jumped on today, I was following the hearings in the Senate with Meta and TikTok and all the other social medias. And it was entertaining, to say the least. Maybe the highlight, certainly the highlight for Josh Hawley, was his exchange with Zuckerberg. It was such a highlight for Josh Hawley that he immediately posted it on his socials, specifically TikTok, his exchange, because as Chris has told us many times, hearings are theater. They serve very little other purpose than to be the theater on which you can raise money and campaign. So unfortunately for Mark Zuckerberg, he maybe became the fool in the play that Hawley had created. Basically, the entire thing it comes down to what is a bipartisan deal for what's called the Kids Online Safety Act. You can look into it. We don't need to dig into too much of the policy side. The naysayers will tell you it is pretty much anytime a bill is labeled with something that seems so overly a good idea, kids online safety, that is such a good idea. Immediately alarm bells maybe should be raised. The naysayers say it is nothing more than censorship online by the government. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. I haven't read the bill. I don't know, but that is what the naysayers say. And it has bipartisan support, which should also raise a red flag for most of us. When we see bipartisan support, there are very few things the two sides can agree on. But increasing their own power and their own lobby income, they can both agree on that. So our interests may not be represented when they're incredibly bipartisan in a bill. If you didn't see the exchange, poor Zuckerberg walked into a minefield set by, I guess, what was he, an Army Ranger or something? Josh Hawley. Or was that Tom Cotton? I think it was Tom Cotton. Might have been Josh Hawley as well, actually. The senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, had laid out a trap. I don't even know if it was a trap, really. It was just a full-on, attack regarding Instagram causing mental health issues. And he had the statistics to back it up, it appears. I think anybody who has common sense will certainly agree that Instagram and social media may be weakening the gray matter in people's heads. But it was interesting to me, I will say, how concerned Josh Hawley was about the issue. So much so that he attacked Zuckerberg and he said, "Do you want to apologize to the victims' families?" There were parents in the audience of children who maybe had been sexually exploited, I believe also perhaps committed suicide, all very tragic and criminal acts potentially. Not necessarily on the part of Meta, right, but on the criminals who perpetrated those acts. And in the case of the suicide, I don't know if that's, you know, if there's a specific criminal act there as well. But um, so Zuckerberg at Holly's taunting stood up and directly apologized to the families of those victims. Okay, yeah, I'm sure that the families are in pain, and they believe that more should be done to protect children online. I think we have to decide what is a child online. Is it anyone under 18? What if you just ban anyone under 18 from accessing your site? Would that be a good thing? Maybe. I honestly don't know. Certainly, I would say, however, parents, and I believe being a Republican, Josh Hawley would support actually that it is the right of the parents to decide what is best for their kids, not Meta, right? Isn't that also the argument that parents should have the right to decide what is in the best interest of their kids, not school even? So if school doesn't have the right or shouldn't be involved in determining what's best for your kid, why would Meta? Ultimately, if your 13-year-old, because one of the statistics was 13 to 15-year-olds had been sexually propositioned in the last 7 days, I guess was one of the 20-something percent. Well, you don't have to give your kid a phone to go on Instagram, right? I mean, I may be missing something. I think you can, I know you can also access Instagram on a computer, but I'm also fairly certain that you can set up a computer to prevent the installing or the visiting of certain websites. I'm sure there are ways around it. Kids are going to be kids. Kids figure out ways to go to parties and get drunk. I don't know if that makes Bud Light liable for what they do, but the point being that there is no common sense. So to believe that there's common sense is just, it's going to be setting us up for not seeing the world clearly, because Josh Hawley can hold a position one moment and the next moment, when it doesn't suit him, not hold that position. Parents have the ability to control much of what their kids access online. It's built in. There are many parental features. Should social media companies do more and prevent younger kids from accessing their product? Maybe, and I don't know if I'd be on board with that or not. I'd have to see the details, but it might not be a bad idea. But boy, Josh Hawley scored his points. Then he went a step further, and boy, this actually, it warmed my heart, because I love hypocrisy. I love viewing hypocrisy. He said, have you compensated the families of these victims? Interesting. Has Meta compensated the family of these victims? And then, no. Not just Meta. Have you, Mr. Zuckerberg, personally compensated the families of these victims? Will you now, I'm almost quoting verbatim, by the way, will you now commit to compensating the families of these victims? You're a billionaire, Mr. Zuckerberg. Oh my God. That seems quite anti-Republican dogma to me. That, I mean, I can make you a list of companies that their product has done something negatively, and we could start going down that compensation game all you want. I think is really interesting that the threat perceived for young people is Instagram and not other things, school shootings, alcohol. Like, do you know what I mean? How many people die every year in DUI accidents? Has anyone ever suggested compensation to those families from Budweiser, vodka company? Why not? Isn't this part of it? Now, I would say the argument could be, you know, those specific products, let's say alcohol, they're not creating that product to be misused. The specific purpose of it is meant to be used in a safe way, let's say. But certainly guns have only one purpose: to kill. To kill a deer if you go hunting, or to kill a person if they come in your door, or you commit a crime and you go outside of your home and aren't protecting yourself, and its only purpose is to kill. So you may say, and I wouldn't argue with you, that, oh, alcohol companies, should they be liable for their product being misused? I might also say, by the way, that it's really not any different than tobacco, where even if you use it properly, it isn't good for you. So there might be some liability there. People who are dying of cirrhosis of the liver, do they have a compensation claim because they use that product too much? Just like using Instagram too much can lead to mental health issues? I don't know. Maybe somebody else has an opinion. Love to hear your opinion. Not really important for our discussion here today, because these are all games. This is all the game. This is the sport. This is why we created Fantasy Elect, because we like to believe that the policy matters. But what's more important for Mr. Hawley and Mr. Zuckerberg is this game back and forth. Mr. Zuckerberg is coming to testify. He knows he's a pawn in a game, a political game. He probably knew the whole thing was going to be put on TikTok the moment his testimony ended, which I think it may have actually popped up even before, almost as fast as they called the Iowa caucuses for Trump. So here's the question. Does this help Hawley in his political career? I think, yeah, there's literally no downside. Nobody likes Mark Zuckerberg. He is the best punching bag in the world. Now, I don't know if he cares because he's laughing all the way to the bank with his money. A wise man will take the punches along with the benefits and just keep doing what they're doing. There are no teeth behind the bark for Josh Hawley. And Zuckerberg knows that. So, I think he misplayed it. I think he could have gotten ahead of it. I think he should have expected it. And as many times as this has happened to Zuckerberg, you would think he would be prepped better and go into it with some unforeseen responses and qualitative actions that take the fire out of the argument that Mr. Hawley wants. But maybe he wants to give that to Josh Hawley. Maybe the theater looks one way for Josh Hawley, but actually, in the usefulness of Josh Hawley as a senator to corporations such as Zuckerberg and Meta, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we dig into the what's it called, the Kids Online Safety Act. If we dig into it, it may actually be regulatory capture for already established social media companies, preventing any new entrants because there's so many regulatory hurdles. How could anybody enter? It may actually benefit Zuckerberg in the long run. So it's a game that everyone's playing. Now you can play. Now you can draft Josh Hawley if you want, because he's likely to score multiple points and maybe win a prize pot for you. That was an interesting story, though. I couldn't help but watch it and laugh. I think we underestimate the value of theater. Another example, the Mayorkas impeachment hearings. Just out of curiosity, what is the rationale behind impeaching someone who is not actually in charge of the policy? So if President Biden is in charge of a policy and he sets that policy, it is then the responsibility of, if that policy pertains to a specific department, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, whatever the case might be, the secretaries are then responsible with executing that policy. And you can disagree on policy choices, doesn't make it impeachable either. I wouldn't say it's a policy to say, for instance, I've decided to give the United States away to Russia or China. That's not a policy choice. That would probably fall under a high crime misdemeanor, perhaps. But how to deal with the issue of illegal immigration, people can disagree with the best way to deal with that. Certainly, many people do disagree, right? But the implement of that policy is not responsible for the policy itself. This is theater. It's much harder, and it's a bigger risk. So it's the asymmetric issue of impeaching Joe Biden. Where is the upside for, and if you don't have the votes and you put on a case and it's televised and you have nothing to really go on other than we disagree on policy, it could be there could be a lot of downside for the Republicans. So rather than that risk, let's do this investigation. And in this investigation, this public hearing, we can now get out all of the bad things that we disagree with and hold by proxy Biden responsible through Mayorkas. Well played. Will it go anywhere? Senators have said, Republican senators have said, it's a big nothing. So it's not going to go anywhere, but it's useful. It's theater. All right. This kind of ties into what's been happening where I'm here in Texas and Austin, what's been going on at the Texas border. Google or look on TikTok or Twitter or Instagram. Don't tell Josh Hawley you're doing this, but go on any of these socials, do a little research and see, has the impasse at Eagle Pass affected anything on the Texas border? No. It's a very small area, and that's all they control. And is it really something? Is there really a constitutional crisis happening? I don't know. It's all theater. I will say, however, to expand on the impeachment and everything else, I saw that James Biden is now has agreed to testify for the impeachment inquiry. I think it's called a panel, actually, a probe. Has anything come out about Joe Biden that leads us to believe we need to continue probing? I don't know. I mean, everything I've seen, it's either side has a different color that they want to place on the testimony, but there's been no definitive evidence presented to anyone. How much money are we spending on a probe that I'm actually very curious. I believe if somebody's committed a crime, regardless of who they are, or if they've violated their oath, or however you want to phrase it, high crime misdemeanor, what, no one is above that. And anyone should be held accountable, regardless. It will be interesting to see, though, how this inquiry, this probe, as I said, with James Biden and all of these people, how can this be used by the Republicans to disadvantage Biden during this election year? That was the last little bit I wanted to add on that. Two quick things I will say. I think this is, so Biden is looking to, where Biden is weakest, by the way, is, I believe, Israel and Gaza, now the Houthis, and Ukraine and Russia. I don't think he's weak in that at all. And what I mean by weakness, by the way, is like base weakness. Republicans, for whatever reason, a certain sect of Republicans are very against being involved in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Okay, I'm sure they have valid reasons, maybe. But that's Republicans. They weren't going to vote for Biden anyway. He doesn't care if they're against it. Generally speaking, I haven't seen many, if any, Democrats against supporting Ukraine against Russia. So there's no political risk in continuing to support Ukraine. Continuing to support Israel and in along with that, now attacking or defending shipping lanes by attacking Houthis. I would argue that it isn't a provocation. They're actually responding to a threat in international shipping lanes. But continuing that is a huge political risk from my perspective for Joe Biden. I actually think it's the biggest risk to his reelection chances. Probably that. I was going to say the border because it does seem that a lot of moderate Democrats also are annoyed or frustrated with the border issues. But I think push comes to shove, they have to cast a vote. They're still going to vote for Biden. So I think Biden has a pretty good lock on center left. Where I think he's weak is progressive far left and Muslim Americans. And in the key state of Michigan, there's a large Muslim American population. The entire 2024 election is going to come down to just a few key areas, as it always does, right? So that is where he's weak. Well, what did I see today on Twitter, I admit? Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is now looking at, they're running the potential policy decision. They're looking at recognizing, perhaps just bilaterally or unilaterally, but bilateral with the PLO or whoever would be in charge, a Palestinian state. So that would completely, I think that action may win the election for Biden. I think he could almost continue, even if he slowed the support for Israel, like if he withdrew it a little bit. I think that, but continue to arm them to a lesser degree. Like if they only armed them with some very kind of strategic, instead of like cannon shells and kind of what would be called maybe like dumb weapons, some very smart targeted weapons to say, hey, we want to ensure that no innocent civilians are being killed in your in this war that you are engaged in. So cannon shells, stuff like that. It's a dense population area. Cannon shells are just asking for collateral damage. So we're going to stop giving you that. Doing that and just announcing that you're looking at unilaterally recognizing a Palestinian state, even if nothing comes of it, that is a very smart political move. Perhaps truthfully principled and believed, I have no idea. But for our purposes, I don't really care either. I'm just saying that it is a smart political move. I think it helps him with his base. I think if he pushes that on the road in Michigan and he goes to his naysayers and he says, we're looking at doing this, we believe there needs to be a two-state solution, and perhaps the only way to achieve that is to unilaterally recognize that state while also withdrawing our support of dumb weapons, I think he protects Michigan. That's my belief. We'll see. Along with that, the last thing I would say on kind of these like 5 points, the quick one I would also say is that what is the key economic achievement? I mean, there have been, truthfully, if you just look at the data, there have been a lot of economic achievements during the Biden presidency, but there's one that he doesn't want credit for. And the other side, the Republicans, don't want to use against him or can't use against him. In November, the United States produced 13.3 million barrels of crude oil a day. We are at all-time highs, record high production, the largest producer of oil in the world. And interestingly, he can't take credit for it because, again, Trump can say drill, baby, drill all day long. That's fine. And Biden can let him say that because it's only solidifying his base, right? It's only solidifying the Trump base. Biden is not going to win the Trump base. And it isn't even now a game of preventing your base from turning out. You're not trying to prevent them from turning out. You're not trying to take away their enthusiasm. What Biden wants is to solidify his own base, and publicizing the increased oil production among the climate concern group on the left is not advantageous. Not only that, there are other ways that Biden will seek to capture the political middle center right as well. And I do think that some of the center right is achievable. And I think that that's when you talk about soccer moms, suburbs, that's what you're really talking about. The center, kind of just everyday working people, middle class, they are a little bit on either sides of the middle, and they are swayable based on the best thing. Biden can still capture that, and he doesn't have to tout his record on honestly, it's not even his record. There are economic forces at play here. So much so, by the way, that Trump and Republicans beat Biden over the head for undoing some oil leases and stuff like that, and preventing new future, like limiting future leases and stuff. It didn't matter. We're still producing more oil than previously when we didn't limit that. So does the president really affect production? To a certain degree, I'm sure. There are some policies that could be taken, real policies that could be taken. New leases on land, that's not going to be felt for a while, right? But there are policy choices that could be made that would seriously affect production. Biden didn't do any of that. Does he deserve credit? Does he deserve blame? Probably neither. But either side can choose which one they want to do with it. But in this case, Republicans will not talk about that economic indicator because they don't want to give him credit. They don't want to lose that argument against him. And he won't talk about it because he doesn't want his base. He doesn't want the left, the beyond center left, to the climate side to hold it against them. So it's a very interesting position there. I guess I didn't want to talk about this, by the way, because everyone's talking about it. And when everyone's talking about something, it kind of bores me for me to do it. I still watch other people talk about it. But it is interesting to me that the right is now claiming that Trump is being swift boated. I'm laughing because I literally, as I typed that out in the show notes, I was laughing at how I could use Taylor Swift's name to bring back the idea of John Kerry being swift boated in 2004. And by the way, I give me some credit. There's nothing like a good double entendre. Is it a double entendre? A pun? I feel like it's a double entendre, right? Because it meant one thing before, but I'm using it another thing. I don't know. I'm repurposing it, okay? And I love that I'm doing it. So he's being swift boated by Taylor Swift and her boyfriend, fake boyfriend. We all know it's a conspiracy. They're not really in love. They're not really dating. The NFL, the DNC, Pfizer, Biden, they all got together and they're like, hey, you Taylor, you Travis, we need you to come together for the sake of the country, for the sake of not even the country, for the sake of Joe Biden. Not even Democrats, Joe Biden. I don't know. The craziest thing about some of the conspiracy theories is that truthfully it could be true. You never know, right? I mean, maybe crazy things happen all the time. But my rational, logical side thinks that this is a little overly complicated. I mean, they threw Pfizer into the mix, I guess because Kelsey did the campaign with the two Band-Aids. I don't know. Okay. And why the NFL would be involved when I'm going to guess, and I didn't look this up. I'm happy to be corrected by any of you, but I'm going to guess the NFL skews center right more than center left. I'm just going to guess. I think Soccer might skew center left, and this isn't like a qualitative, shade on either side. I just don't. I'm guessing it is more center right. Just like I would guess that NASCAR is more center right and Formula One's more center left. That'd be my guess. But anyway, why would the NFL be involved? I mean, I can see why they would be involved for ratings. Anything with Taylor Swift has helped their ratings. I actually saw a guy on TikTok that his like 12-year-old daughter now watches Chiefs games and actually knows the rules of football and everything because of Taylor Swift. I thought, coming from fantasy sports, our fantasy sports company, I thought fantasy sports was the best thing to happen to sports and all of the leagues in 30 or 40 years. And I was right for a time. There's been an uptick in all of them, but that's maybe started to wane a bit. Although, DraftKings, FanDuel, they become sports books. That's, I think, also increased some engagement. That can't go on forever. Ultimately, Taylor Swift might be the best thing that ever happened to the NFL. I think that if the NFL and everybody's involved, Travis Kelce should be hugely rewarded for the role he's playing in this conspiracy because of how much it has benefited the NFL. Like, he should get an NFL team when he retires. That's how much Taylor Swift has benefited the NFL. Just her relationship with Travis, being at the games. NFL milks it. They do. I don't, because of my work schedule, I don't watch a lot of NFL games. Full disclosure, I think is what I'm supposed to say. My dad is from that area and a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. So oftentimes, like on Christmas Day, I guess it was, we watched the Chiefs game. So I do see the games, and I do see them cut away sometimes to her, maybe a little too much. But we're almost at the point now where, like, why don't they just make her a commentator in the booth? I think that actually would be a really good thing. Imagine how fucking amazing it would be to have like Monday Night Football with the play-by-play with Taylor Swift. That'd be awesome. Anyway, so Trump is being Swift voted. What I think is being missed from the entire thing, however, is it's not Biden, it's not Trump who's in jeopardy because of Taylor Swift. I mean, yes, maybe. I mean, I do think she has the influence to sway a certain percentage of voters. This could also be part of the progressive left strategy that Biden could employ. And if he's smart, he will. And who cares about the belief of the conspiracy theory? Because the reality is that, again, the right already believes the conspiracy theory. So even if you do things to prove them right, whether or not there is a real conspiracy, but suddenly you start the campaign and you bring Taylor Swift to campaign events, the right's going to be like, aha, we told you. Who cares what they think? They're not going to vote for you anyway, Biden. Go on, do a road show with Taylor Swift. Who's really in jeopardy, though? Marsha Blackburn. So my big call for this week, by the way, is that watch out. Me personally, my team, if I had a team, which I don't because I can't legally because I run the company. But if I had a team, I would not draft Marsha Blackburn. I think that Taylor Swift can sway that election in Tennessee. I think that Taylor Swift, I don't even know, to be honest with you. I've seen some things that she said about Marsha Blackburn. I think she doesn't like Marsha Blackburn a lot. So in truth, I think the real danger for your lineup with the Swift voters, Swifties, is Marsha Blackburn. Just saying right now, she could win. I mean, if you look at kind of, she's in an uncontested Republican primary as of right now, and I think that's the way it's gonna hold. There is a third party libertarian candidate, and there are 4 people running in the Democratic primary. I don't know. I mean, the 4 I haven't done enough research on yet. I don't know if any one of them is strong enough statewide. There's a huge incumbent advantage for Marsha Blackburn. She's got name recognition. She's been doing it for a while. And It's a red state, so to be defeated to your left is less likely. I mean, truthfully, I don't know. I would love to talk to Taylor Swift. So Taylor, if you're watching this, hit me up. I have some ideas. But uh, the interesting thing is that if Taylor wants to have an effect on politics, and especially on on that Senate seat in Tennessee, she really doesn't like Marsha Blackburn. The place to beat her would be in the Republican primary, by the way. Would it be easier to sway some of the Republican voters away from a Donald Trump backed Marsha Blackburn towards a name recognized, more appealing to you, Taylor, Republican, just in order to defeat Marsha Blackburn? Would that be enough for you? And I think that's actually where the real political play would be, is that if you want to get rid of her, you find somebody who is maybe somebody who is more amenable to some other policy choices than what Marsha Blackburn has made, but still represents Republicans, would make party line votes, but could be also a moderate version. Yeah. So note to self, maybe you don't want to draft Marsha Blackburn. Because ultimately, by the way, in our game, even if she would eventually become the winner and defeat her Democratic challenger, if Taylor Swift throws her support behind the Democrat, I think Marsha Blackburn's polling numbers and fundraising all go, either polling goes down, fundraising may stay the same or even go up, but the fundraising for her challenger will go very high up and may actually earn more points. So the potential points earned by Marsha Blackburn on your team are hugely in doubt if Taylor Swift really swifts her. Yeah. All right. It's time to wrap it up with our over under, and there's a couple of interesting things in the week to come. So before our next episode will be the Nevada primaries, but not the Nevada caucuses. That will be one day after our next episode. So 2 days after the primaries are the Nevada caucuses. For anybody who isn't paying attention to what's going on in Nevada, it's interesting. The Nevada primaries will take place on Tuesday, February 6th. Trump is not on that ballot. The Nevada caucuses will take place on Thursday, February 8th, and Nikki Haley is not on that ballot. So Nikki Haley has already lost Nevada because the courts have ruled that the state Republican Party can apportion its delegates based on the caucuses, not the primary. And Trump is going to win the caucuses. He's going to get the 26 delegates, I believe it is, from Nevada. It's already done. He's already won. However, this is a real test of whether or not Nikki Haley will drop out. It's not as big as South Carolina. And anybody who watched last week, you may have seen the back and forth that Chris and I had and the probabilities that we were running on her dropping out pre or post South Carolina. This could be one of the things that would affect that. The question is then, on the 6th, what is the turnout for the primary and what percentage of the vote does she get? Because the governor of Nevada, Joe Lombardo, said that he would vote none of the above or something in primaries and vote for Trump in the caucuses. So he's going to vote at both because it's an optics thing, right? He can't sit out an election. It wouldn't look good if he didn't cast a vote in an election in the state. So he's going to vote in the primaries. He's already said how he's going to vote. None of the above, not for Haley. And he's going to vote in the caucuses. He's going to caucus for Donald Trump. And so Trump's won. He's got the support of Joe Lombardo, the governor. Great. How many people do that? Now, in 2020, there were about 200,000 people who turned out for the primaries, the Republican primaries. and it was about 40% of the total Republicans in the state. Will it be the same? No. I have the over under for the turnout at 147,345. Is it going to be more or less than that? I think it's going to be under. I think we're going to come in under that 147,345. The other question is, what percent of that turnout does Haley get? I have the break at 52.3%. Does she get more or less? Now, there are some other people on the ballot, mostly unknown or people who are not in the race. I think Tim Scott and Mike Pence might actually still be on that ballot. So, but they're not in the race anymore. Be interesting if one of those two actually wins the primary, she's dropping out for South Carolina. I don't think it's going to happen. Nobody likes to waste their time by doing a wasted vote. Only a politician, only a Joe Lombardo would waste his time to go cast a none of the above, really. Nobody who has to work a real job is going to go waste their time doing that. But what will the turnout be and what percent will she capture? The interesting thing about that is, what do those numbers equal for the Republican Party, right? So then in the caucuses, what will the turnout for that be? And what percent will Trump get? Now, for the caucuses, I have the turnout being 121,297. And so will it be over and under that? I believe it'll be over that. I don't know by how much, but I think we're going to be over that. And I have Trump getting 78.6% of the turnout or of the vote there. Over under that. 78.6. Now, this is a hard one for me because I think that is actually a really good number. I think he's going to be just shy of it. And I think he's going to come in somewhere around 72, 73% maybe. Again, there's an unknown also on the ballot, but it's really kind of a foregone conclusion. But do people like voting in foregone conclusions? Will they maybe hold that against Trump and not vote for him in the secret ballot? I don't know. It's certainly possible it could be over, but that's a lot. That's a high percentage of the vote, even if you're the only one on the ballot. So what I would look at for determining South Carolina and what Haley does next, take the total turnout times the percent that she gets. How many total votes does she get? Same with the caucus and how many total votes Trump gets. And if there's some closeness to parity there, I think it strengthens her resolve going into South Carolina. If it is a drastic, I was going to say FU to her, but if it is a drastic, if there's a drastic difference in the vote counts, she may drop before South Carolina because it would be an indicator of a real rout coming in South Carolina, which would be embarrassing in her home state. Yeah. I think that's it, everyone. That's what I have for over under. I think we're going to see some interesting things in Nevada primary. I mean, again, Biden's going to win the Democratic primary in Nevada. Haley's going to win the Republican primary in Nevada, and Trump's going to win the Republican caucuses. And that's how it's going to be. I can predict the future. The question is, what are the vote totals and how does that matter? Another interesting one would be, by the way, total turnout, caucuses and primaries. And you can do both, right? So Joe Lombardo said he's going to do both. What's the total turnout, primaries and caucuses for the Republicans? And what's the turnout in the Democratic? And because Joe Biden is basically unopposed, Dean Phillips he's bypassing Nevada. It could be an indicator of enthusiasm in the parties. Because, again, it's the first time that I don't think New Hampshire was a good indicator of that because of the way the rules are set up in New Hampshire for independence and stuff. This is a good one to kind of see where are the parties capturing their base, and that's an enthusiasm thing. Who they like, and that goes back to how we started this entire episode, which is it's about your base, and in some cases, it's about capturing the center, right? So, can you keep your base strong, get them out? And can you also capture enough of the middle to win. All right, everyone. That's it. Put it's in the can. Put a ribbon on it. We're done. All right. My name is Justin Schoenfelder. This is Bully Pulpit, sponsored by Fantasy Elect. Check us out now, fantasyelect.io. Also, I want you to know, start following us on social if you want. We post on YouTube. We will start to post as well on some of the podcast channels, our audio. We're also on Twitter, fantasy_elect, on Instagram, fantasy_elect, on Facebook, Fantasy Elect, and TikTok, I think, Fantasy Elect. It's horrible that I don't know that off the top of my head, but I don't think there's an underscore on TikTok. We do some funny videos. I think, you might like it. Anyway, go on now. We actually have free entry going on right now, prize pots contests that we're sponsoring that you don't have to pay to enter. All right. That is it for today. And go draft your team and win some bragging rights and cash. We'll see you in the next one.